Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. There's just a few of us gathered here, but for the next 30 minutes, we're going to hold space to reflect on the life and legacy of two great men, the Reverend C.T. Vivian and Congressman John Lewis, who last week made their transition from elders to ancestors. These two men were on the front lines of the American Civil Rights Movement. They put their lives and their bodies on the line to end racism, to desegregate this nation, and so all Americans might have equal access to our rights to vote. Countless civil rights activists from the 1960s to today call them their mentors and guiding lights in their movement work. And of course, these two men didn't fight on their own. There were many women and transgender folks and other men who were part of the struggle, and we honor them all today. So I'm going to read a few quotes by C.T. Vivian, and then Julie is going to lead us in a moment of silence. So these are the words of C.T. Vivian. Every people's movement does more for a nation than a half a dozen different times you have a new Congress. There's no way I could have known I was going to be a part of a group that was about changing the very nature of life in this nation. We had to change the way the nation thought and felt and acted about its own humanity and the humanity of others. This is far more than passing a law. And finally, that's what the movement was about, Vivian says. Radical good confronting radical evil and not backing down.
Hearing these words from the Reverend C.T. Vivian, and perhaps holding whatever your own reflections, your own memories of Reverend C.T. Vivian are in your heart right now, I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or to simply let this be a moment where you let your body and your eyelids just rest. And let us hold a minute of silence, honoring the legacy, the impact, and the work of Reverend C.T. Vivian. I invite you to begin opening your eyes, coming back into this space. C.T. Vivian, may his memory be a blessing.
And now I'm going to read a quote by Congressman John Lewis. And then once again, Julie will invite us to silence. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely, but when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon of light for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world, community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself.
And so just as we heard those words from Congressman John Lewis, I once again invite you to begin to enter into a moment to remember, to honor, and to reflect John Lewis. So once again, if you feel comfortable closing your eyes in this moment, I invite you to do so, to let your eyes relax, your body relax, whatever will help you move into that space, holding your own reflections and honoring of John Lewis in your mind. Let us be in silence together. Once again, I invite you to open your eyes as we honor Congressman John Lewis. May his memory be a blessing. Having heard these words from both Reverend C.T. Vivian and these words from Congressman John Lewis, I now want to open up some space for us to share some of our own words and our own reflections as you might want to share them. And there's certainly no expectation and no pressure to share any of those reflections, but we do want to open up that space. And the way I had been thinking about doing that on this Zoom format, in this virtual format, is to give space to each one of us that is gathered here today. And if you want to use your space to offer some words, either of your own reflections, perhaps they're even words of someone else that you're holding in your heart right now, another hero of the civil rights movement, or someone else who you might just be thinking about today, to know you can use your space to do that as well. And if there isn't anything you want to say out loud, that is perfect as well. So I'm just going to write out the names as I see them on my own screen and give you the space to say anything you might like to. And again, if you don't want to say anything, just say pass, and we will move right along to the next person. So I will just write out that I see Tamia, and then Chris, then Sylvia, Jenna, and Julie. And I'll send that so you see that order. So Tamia, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I am incredibly excited that we took some time to stop and honor these amazing individuals, and as well as all the heroes and sheroes and theyros of the civil rights movement, the ongoing civil rights movement. This was incredibly important to me because the stories that I started hearing about the civil rights movement, I started to hear them when I was, tiny, three or so. My father grew up in Alabama. My mother grew up in Georgia. Both families were sharecroppers, and, they grew up in the heart of everything. And the stories that they told about these individuals, about the Freedom Riders, about just countless names and countless folks who put their lives and their safety, in jeopardy in order so that we could live better. That is the foundation of who I am. It's just the very heart of who I am. And I hate that we don't get a chance to stop and to honor them always. But I'm again, happy that we've had this opportunity to do it this time. And I'm happy that I get to do it with some of my wonderful Emerson colleagues.
Thank you, Tamia. Chris, I will pass it to you.
Hi, everybody. Kind of nice to have a small group like this, actually, as it turns out. As a kid growing up, I was born in 1971, and hearing about the civil rights movement as a kid, I always thought, oh, that was a long time ago. All this stuff is settled. But in fact, it was just a few years before I was born. Sort of weird to wrap one's head around that. But because of that, these sort of living legends have been living, through most of my life until now. And it's now occurring to me that some of these living legends are not going to be living forever. You know what I mean? Like they're sort of reaching the end of their days. And that's, I don't know, something I hadn't thought about a whole lot, I guess. But I think I said it to me and Julie that I will admit that I didn't know who C.T. Vivian was, so I've gotten to do a lot of learning over the past week about who he is and what he did, not only during that era, but ever since then, and some of the organizations he founded and the impact he has had on young people in particular. And then John Lewis I was familiar with. Although in doing more reading and watching about him, the dude was a powerhouse. He has this whole series of graphic novels that he wrote, you know what I mean? Like all these crazy things. Who the heck would have thought of that? I don't know where he got the energy. But I think when I think of them, what I think about the most, especially right now in this moment, is just, I just marvel at how they had the energy and the grace and the resilience and the fortitude to just keep going. I cannot imagine having grown up when they did and then living through the civil rights movement, as we call that period in history, and then living through everything since then and continuing the work. I mean, I don't do anything and I'm exhausted, you know what I mean? And these guys were just out there, and going at it for decades, and not only that, again, with such grace and such and I know, sort of what a beautiful thing in a way that they died on the same day. I mean, and they were friends. And so I think about that and just how important it is to know who your people are and your allies are and draw strength from them. And, but I just sort of marvel at that, how they made this their life's work. And it's, I mean, I didn't know them, but given their public presentations, it looks like they didn't get cynical. Maybe they did privately, I don't know, but they just kept doing their thing. They just kept chipping away in different ways over time, and that's really incredibly moving to me and inspirational. And I don't know, it makes me just think about how do you just pick up every day and keep going? You know what I mean? Just keep going. And yeah, so I'll stop talking there, but thank you guys for creating this space.
Thanks so much, Chris. So Sylvia, I will pass it to you.
Well, first, thank you to all of you for creating this space, Julian, Tamia, and Chris. It was a wonderful space to step into today. And I realized in the moment, as you opened and as Chris played and Tamia spoke, both how powerful a moment it is, but also how much I miss seeing you. Even though our seeing in the course of our work is just a passing sometimes, today I feel it, especially the energy that one feels when they're in proximity with other folks. So I just wanted to lift that up. I mean, what do you say, about John Lewis and C.T. Vivian? I had an opportunity to actually meet and spend some time with C.T. as part of a civil rights tour of the South that I did 2000, I think. um, with person I call Doc Lafayette, who's a third person in that triumphant that triad there. And so today and in the past week or so, I've been thinking a lot of that mighty trio and other folks, including women, even though they're often not lifted up as such an integral part of the civil rights movement, who actually, provided the way. I think about my, the privilege of being able to study and work with Doc Lafayette and get certified in, as nonviolent trainer and all of that with him, is the legacy of feeling John Lewis and CT and all of those other luminaries that I got to meet as part of this. So I also hold in my heart, just like we think about, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, please don't go yet. I think of the same thing about Doc Lafayette. I see that, some of his brothers have transitioned. And so I'm putting out into the universe, we still need him because we have more work to do. And he provides some light and some way of being in the world that allows you to be in the struggle, but not in despair, but ever in hope, in the deep capacity of human beings to bring about change. And so that's what bubbles up for me today. And I thank you again for this beautiful space.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And Jenna, I'll pass it over to you.
So I don't have like a lot to say, but I guess what kind of compelled me to be here today and to be a part of the conversation is just the fact that these two men I didn't know and I didn't learn about. And so I just wanted to be able to take, even this small portion out of my day to be able to sit in that and reflect in that and, give faces and names to that civil rights movement and, just learn those names and learn who they were, because that wasn't part of what I learned growing up. So just being able to give time to understand that they're not just a section in a history textbooks, they're far more than that. So.
Thanks so much, Jenna, and every single one of you. And I think my own piece that I'll share is just that I had been learning about John Lewis, but Reverend C.T. Vivian is a newer name to me as well. And in these last couple of days, as I've been reading about him and reading his work, I have just been so struck by how he was someone who had so much courage to put himself in the center of violence and strife and tension over and over and over again. And he was also so clear on what it was that was motivating him. And he was someone who was so led by his own faith and his own convictions and his own sort of why in the world. And so learning those stories, particularly in this moment in history, has been something that's giving me a lot of strength and inspiration this week. And I'm also mourning that I didn't learn about him until now, as others have said too. So thank you so much to each of you for taking that time to share a little piece of your own reflections and how you're coming into this space. And as we move towards the 2:30 time, and we likely will be just kind of zooming into something else perhaps, or going on with our day and whatever awaits, I want to begin to close our time together with a meditation that was recently written by Adrienne Marie Brown, particularly upon the passing of John Lewis, and particularly inspired by the reading that Tamia did at the beginning of our gathering today. That reading that reminds us that you are a light and you are the light. And so as we close with these words of Adrienne Marie Brown, I invite you once again to close your eyes if this feels comfortable in this moment, or to get your body into a place that will allow you to breathe into these words and to breathe into everything that you are about to hear from Adrienne Marie Brown. She writes, "Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, let everything too heavy fall down through you to the earth. Let gravity hold it. Take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, let everything too small for this moment in history, too petty, let it fall down through you to the earth. Let gravity hold it. Breathe in lightness, brightness. Let yourself shine as a beacon of the way we feel, but have not yet lived. For you are a light. You are the light." As you continue to take those breaths in and out, I invite you to open your eyes once again as Tamia closes our space.
So in closing, I'd just like to again say thank you so much for joining us. There were other folks who really wanted to be here, and there's no shortage of things going on and to do, and they are honoring the memories of these two great men in their own ways and in their own time. But I'm again glad that we were able to gather here today together to have this space and to have this moment. So in closing, Chris is going to play This Little Light of Mine. And the words are, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." So Chris will begin playing, and again, thank you for being here, and we'll close this space after Chris has finished playing. Thank you.